Alrighty, so we are live here. Okay, so I'll give a minute or two so other people can also join us. So in this meantime, I will start with introductions on our end. So as you may know, I'm Jamil. I'm the director of product and operations here at VideoWorks. I have been working here for the past 11 years, so a long, long time. And it's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to have you here with us as well. And I have a special guest, once again, Rodrigo. Rodrigo, I'll let you introduce yourself, please.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today. It's not like a special guest anymore because I was here last week, and then I hope to keep, if Jamil allowed me, to keep coming and help you guys with questions and bringing up off topics to stimulate our conversation. So I'm Rodrigo. I'm marketing director here at BuildWorks. So I'm been in at BuildWorks for the last 3 years now, and I'm helping to create our community. So yeah, and I'm excited to know today about multimedia translation.
All right, so thank you, Rodrigo. And you're always going to be a special guest for us. So it's a pleasure to have you here. And by the way, you're also going to invite other people to the sessions eventually in the next couple of weeks. And so a lot of good news are coming. So let's get this started. And as Rodrigo mentioned, the focus here is to create a sense of community. So we hope that we can share with you something that's useful for you, right? So, of course, we are going to talk about our platform, about how we see things, but most importantly, we want to learn from you as well. We want to learn from your experience. We want you to communicate with us through the chat. Again, sharing your thoughts, your experiences, and sharing with us anything that questions, of course, if you have questions, feel free to send us in the chat. All right, so that's the goal to create this sense of community here. This session was made for you. All right. So, by the way, I already responded. So, but welcome, Marina, and welcome everyone here in the room. And please tell us where you're from, so we have an idea. By the way, I'm based in São Paulo, Brazil. Rodrigo is in Canada, so it's pretty cold day here today. That's why I'm wearing this jacket. Anyways, so Mauko, welcome from Togo. Cool, very cool. All right, so let's start with our main topic for today. I will share my screen so we can start this conversation. Let me open. All right, okay, so there we go. Let me switch my screen here real quick. Okay, and let me refresh. Okay, so our topic today is how to effectively translate multimedia content while keeping your style and terminology. So I will, of course, share my translation editor. But before doing so, I think that's important for us to establish what is this multimedia, right, that we are talking about. And I will try my best to not be too technical about it, right? So I don't want to overcomplicate things. And also, I don't want to oversimplify things as well. So I will try my best to relevant for anyone. So for translators, for reviewers, for translation agencies, project managers, translation buyers. So everyone can maybe learn something from this session. And also, again, I want to during the session here, your experiences here, your pain points while translating multimedia content. So your thoughts on what are the kind of projects that you have most difficult when you require translation, and or while you are translating content if you are a translator, of course. So that's the goal here. All right. So for that, I'm going to share another screen here, which is my folder with some files. Let me see here. All right, so this downloads folder. I hope you can see it. And let me open this. All right, so now I choose some files here, right? So we can just briefly talk about this multimedia content before we jump into our translation editor. Okay, so I have a Word document, I have an MP4 file, so this is a video, an SRT file, that's standard format for subtitles. I have a PowerPoint with images as well, and I also have some PNG files, so actual images. And we could have like a PDF, we could have many other Photoshop files and other kind of formats, but I just picked just a few of those so we can briefly talk about that. All right, so let me open the Word document. You're probably pretty familiar with that. So I created this, I exported this actually from our website, and I exported as well some images. As you can see here, we have this um, woman here with this square management and some text in there. If you scroll down, we have more text. And we also have another image here. So that's one example. Let me close this. We have, of course, a video. We have a PowerPoint. This PowerPoint, we just have our logo. Let me, oh, by the way, I think that I'm not sharing, right? Our, oh, okay.
Yes, when
Apologize.
yes,
Yeah,
when you
yeah.
open your
I
file,
should,
it's not showing yet.
all right. I apologize for that. I forgot that I'm not sharing my entire screen, but let me open it again so I can share my Word document. All right, so I'm used to use two screens, so that's why I thought that it was sharing. Okay, so this is the Word document that I mentioned. So this was exported from our website, videoworks.com. So we have text in here, right? And then we have these images. So we have this woman, we have this square management, we have scroll down more text, and then another image here, and so on. So that's what we are talking about, right? So multimedia, we have like text, but we also have those images. And in my example here, those images are not editable, right? So I cannot, for instance, click on this and translate this text, right? So that's part of what we are talking about. Of course, there are images or maybe text boxes or other items that can be also part of the document that may be editable. So that's not the case here. I have images that are not editable, right? So let me close my Word document, and now let me switch here to again to my folder. Okay, so now that we established what we're talking about, we have the images here that I mentioned. So we have the screenshot from the editor, the query management, and the woman in the illustration. All right, so that's what we are talking about, right? So multimedia content, we have maybe a Word document with images, we have a PowerPoint with images or illustrations, we have a Photoshop, we have a video, so any kind of document that have multiple layers, right? Not only it's not text only, so they also have other kind of multimedias in it. All right, so that's is that the main topic here. Okay, so now before we jump into our editor, one thing that it's important that we also talk about before again we start covering how we deal with that is how do we handle those non-editable images and content, right? So um, imagine that you have a PDF document. So PDF document is non-editable, right? So you cannot, you may have like Adobe, right? Adobe to when with Adobe you may be able to add some PDF files, but PDF by definition is non-editable. Now, a PDF is a document that was generated from a different source. So maybe it was a screenshot that you stored as a PDF file. Maybe it was a Word document that, I don't know, a legal document that you want to share with people, but you don't want them to edit that document. So you convert that Word document into PDF and then you share with people. Maybe it was a Photoshop and the format that you're going to export is PDF because maybe it is a magazine, right? So PDF is coming from a different source. So PDF is not the source, right? It's not where you create the content in general. And that's why that's important to mention because if you want, and the same applies for images, right? Images are not, we don't create images in JPEG, right? Unless you're taking a picture of someone or a screenshot. But if you're creating like a screenshot with text, with something, you may have generated, I don't know, from Photoshop, from Adobe InDesign, right? So there's another tool that is the source that generates that image. Okay, so how we handle that? To handle that, you need to have access to the original file. So again, if you are talking about a PDF file, how you edit a PDF file? You need to have access to the file that generate that. So again, in my initial example, if that PDF was generated from a Word document, you would need to have access to the Word document so you can edit that PDF file. So the same for a Photoshop. How you edit a PDF that was created originally in Photoshop, you have to request access to the Photoshop. Right? So that's again, that's the main and the recommended way so you can edit. Of course, there are different approaches, there are workarounds. You can maybe try to convert the PDF into an editable format. That works sometimes. Maybe it's a scanned document that's not going to work really well. So that's why, again, there are workarounds depending on how the file was created, but the recommendation is to have access to the source file that was used to generate that PDF, that image, so then you can edit those. All right, so now let's dig into our translation editor so we can talk more about that in detail. Okay. And by the way, if you have comments or questions, please feel free to send in the chat, right? So Rodrigo will try to help me with those questions so we can
Yes.
make sure that we are respond to any questions that you may have. All right. So give me just a quick second. Okay. So there we go. Now going back to this other page. Okay. So I use the same files again. A Word document with those images, um, an XRT which is connected with a video, and a PowerPoint with an image that's basically our logo, right? Okay, so let me open this Word document so we can start. All right, so it's loading the preview. So here you can see the preview of the Word document, right? So we have the text, we have images. So now the first thing that's important for translators, um, is that they need to have as much context as possible, right? Again, those this was extracted from our website, so I could maybe put here our website and perform a web preview that would work. But let's say that this was extracted from maybe a offline document, right? So there's no web preview, but I have the document with image. So that's important to give to the translator so they know, okay, they are translating this in a more contextualized way. So maybe I can find a good example here. Let me scroll down to the second image. All right. So let's suppose that in this translation here in the editable content, you are talking about the button, I don't know, maybe mark as delivered, right? And this button is translated in a certain way. So you are referring to an image, right? So you want to make sure that in the translation, you are referring to the same button using the same translation. You don't want to translate that differently, right? So that's a good example of why the translator should have more context when they are translating content, right? So that's just one example. There are, of course, several others, but that's an example to keep it consistent, right? And also to give you more context to that, right? This image in particular is not exactly, in my example here, related to the text, but it could be. It could be related exactly to this. And depending on what we have in this image, the way that I'm translating the segment, it may require some modifications to match with what the image is saying, right? Is that clear? Rodrigo, any questions so far? Any questions from
Yes,
you as
yes,
well?
yes. It's clear. I was just asking our audience, just asking
All right.
which multimedia formats they translate, just to help
Perfect.
us to understand their needs.
Yes.
But so far, so good.
Yes. Perfect. That's good. That's good to know. All right. So, okay. So that's again just the first thing. Before we actually start to translate the content, we have to think about, are we giving as much context as possible for the translators? If the answer is yes, perfect. That's good to know. If not, it is important that we think about this process, right? Because again, now I'm talking about more my experience with other clients and people translating this multimedia content. The worst scenario you could have is you are sending a file to a translator where this text only, and maybe this will go to your web application, to application, to a website, to any file or any content that has images in it, and those images are associated with the text that have been translated, and they don't know about it, right? So they could be translating in a certain way, but if they had access to those images, they could make a modification that could make the translations better, or to make the translations more consistent with what we had in those images. Again, there are ways to work around that. So maybe you don't have a way to give them access to the actual context, right? So maybe it's a web application and you cannot grant access to a lot of people. So we use different ways to handle that. Um, but the most recommended way is, okay, so maybe if you cannot give access to the whole environment, you may be able to give access to them to a final document. So, for instance, they translate the content, they deliver the content gets uploaded to this application or website. The content gets exported. It could be maybe a PDF file that contains the content, the translation, and those images. So then this go back to the translation. So we have this additional QA process where the translators can look at the whole context with the images and everything, and then if needed, make adjustments, right? That's not going to happen every single time, but when needed, they can make changes that are important for the content based on the context that they are now have, right? But again, that's in case that's not possible. Ideally, they could like have something like this. So they have access to the whole file and with images and everything. So they already have context. So there's no need to add this additional layer of QA, right? Post deliver. So you remove an additional layer just by having all that together. And again, one more thing. So maybe this context cannot be shared in this document that's being translated, but maybe you have, I don't know, a PDF file that can be shared. So that could be uploaded to the project as reference file. So they could have a reference file here that, okay, so they know, okay, so this is the original content. So this is the source content, which with all the images and everything. And now, while they're translating the content here, even though they don't have the images in the actual file, this Word document, they have this PDF or this file for reference with images, links, and everything, right? So that's one of the main things. So the setup is as important as, of course, the tool and how they are handling that content. And I don't know if any translators are in the session. I think so. But if you have any experience with that and want to share with us, please feel free to do so. Your pain points were when dealing with this kind of content. What really helps translators when you are translating this content. The same for project managers and people that are preparing this content. So what you see that's more challenging while you are preparing these files to share with people. I see like a lot of people have a hard time gathering all these source files to be able to share the editable content with translators, or maybe even to get to the context to share with the translators. Maybe they have to deal with a lot of layers, and the company that has created that file, so they have to request that and then wait for that to finally share with the translators. So I would like to hear your struggles with that, because I know that at least I had a lot in my experience, and this is pretty common. So now continuing here, again, this is the Word document, and I have the PowerPoints, same concept. This just have a logo. So I just have this logo. Of course, this is not translatable, but again, maybe the a translator that's not familiar with this the brands, if you have the Beetleworks in the text, they could translate that. I don't know, right? So at least they know, okay, so Beetleworks, we have this logo, so it's a company name. This should not be translated. So when, as they have this context with this image, they know that if they're translating this content and Beetleworks is in the content, that should be kept in English, right? Again, that's just visual reference. So let me
Jamil.
load this. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, we lost maybe 20, 30 seconds
Oh, really?
from
Okay,
your,
that's a lot.
yes, your audio. Yeah, it
Okay,
was when you were opening this new work unit, like while it was opening,
the
it broke
PowerPoints.
your, yes.
Okay, all right. So apologize. My internet connection seems to be not so good today, but so I was just saying that. So in this one, I just have this logo. So there are not a lot of images you could have, but you just have this logo. But maybe someone that's not familiar with the brand now, just by having this visual reference, okay, so Vitaworks is the company name, so that's not translatable. So if we have in this content Vitaworks, they know, okay, but just visually that should not be translated. That should be kept as it is because it's a company name, right? And of course, I will talk about glossary and translation memory in a minute, but just that's just the visual reference. Now, this is the last one, the video. So we have this video.
And Jamil,
Go ahead.
So basically, the way how we translate any kind of
Hmm.
content, any kind of multimedia content, we are going to use always a new project. Like we always use the same path. Like we have first to upload our documents, no matter the format. Like we always like the video and the docx that you just shared. We are going to use the same process, right? We have to upload first.
Yes, that's a good question. The simple answer is yes. The longer answer is that in some cases it depends. So going back to my original example, for instance, you have this the same Word document that I have in here, right? But the request was to translate this image. So I need to have access to the editable file from this image, right? So regardless of the tool that was used to create this, of course, this was a screenshot from VideoWorks, but let's suppose that was created in Adobe InDesign, in Photoshop, right? So I need to have access to that Photoshop because from this Word document, I cannot translate this image, right? So then I would have, so let's say that I received the Word document and also I received this Photoshop or InDesign or any file that was used to create this image here, then I will have to upload both to the platform, right? So that's one way. The other way is okay. So the we could not find or don't have access to the original file anymore. So this Photoshop, this design that was used to create this image no longer exists. So we could not find it. Okay, there are another way. Again, that's not the recommendation. Also, it usually is costly and also takes more time to be done, and sometimes not perfect. You can have someone recreating this image. So usually, the way you do it is before you upload the file for translation, you send this file, this Word document, to a translator. This translator will transcribe all this content in this image to a Word document or to Excel file or to any file that makes more sense. So just the text from it. Then you're going to upload both this Word document with this text, the editable text, plus this other file with the transcribed content from this image. You're going to translate both of them. Then, next step, this file with the transcription after the translation have to be sent to a designer or someone that's going to be able to recreate that image, right? And then finally, when you have that image recreated, you're going to add it to your Word document. So a lot of additional steps, right? So by not having this editable file here, you have to first transcribe, translate both the editable content and also the transcribed content. That's again, it was transcribed from this image, have this additional layer of recreation, um, and then finally you can rebuild this final Word document with the translated text and this translated image, right? So that's the longer answer. So if you have non-editable files, there's always a initial step at least so you can prepare the file for translation. Right?
Yeah,
You
this
cannot
this
again. Mhm. Go ahead.
this this whole process that you describe it just when we don't have the editable
Right.
version. When we
Yes.
have, so it's much easier and we can
Yes.
operate directly. Okay, nice, understood.
Yes. Yes.
Eh,
Yes.
we
Yes.
we have one question from Marina. It's one
Go ahead.
interesting question. Can we recommend free tools for translation? I don't know if you know any besides our
Well,
platform, of course.
well, I mean, I don't know a free tool. I know one that's pretty good, and I definitely recommend it. So it is VideoWorks. I'm kidding, but At the same time, so you have 14 days free trial. So you don't need to enter your credit card information. You can test for 14 days. After 14 days, if you're not happy, if you're not satisfied, that's it. So again, you're not going to be billed because your credit card info was not entered. Your account is going to be canceled automatically, and it's pretty cheap. So it's $7. So again, for a single translator, a solo translator, excuse me, it is $7 per month in the year plan, or the monthly plan is $9 per month. So again, it's not free, but that's what I would recommend. I mean, and you're probably going to understand why in a few minutes why it is so cheap and so powerful. All right, let me go back here. So yes, going back to your question, that's basically it. Of course, I'm not saying that you will not have this or require this design step if you have the editable files, but recreating files is complex. You have to have access to the same fonts and colors and everything. So you have to create from scratch. So it's complex. So again, it is probably costly in general than just recreating the same document in the translation um, the translated version of it, right? What else? Oh, and by the way, just one thing that you reminded me, Rodrigo, talking about this process, I mentioned PDF. PDF is non-editable, right? So we have been discussing a lot and are implementing already a way to PDFs being recognized by BetterWorks and imported to a project, right? So you could translate a PDF in the platform and download the PDF after the translation process. So currently, the way you have to do it is usually, right? So you take this PDF, you convert to a Word document or to a PowerPoint file that, again, both are editable formats. And then after this conversion, you upload this docx or the PowerPoint to the platform and translate it. After translation, convert back into PDF, right? So that's currently what you have to do. Now we're implementing this feature that will allow us to recognize the content in this PDF, and so you can upload directly the PDF to the platform, translate it as it was an editable format, and then after you translate it, you can download the PDF. All right, so there are no need to convert files and export and import. So you upload the PDF, you download the translated version of that PDF. That's coming most likely in the next 6 days. So 2 months from now. So that's coming. That's something that we are already working on, just so you know. So PDF will eventually no longer be part of those files that require again this this source file, this original file. Just one quick note: unless it is a scanned document with pretty bad quality, of course, then no tools will be able to recognize the translatable content, right, and convert it to an editable file. But other than that, standard PDFs, um, usually we test that a lot, are converting pretty well and are working fine. Even the images in the PDFs are converting pretty well as well with this tool. All right. Any other questions or comments, Rodrigo, before we move
No,
on here?
no. I just added in our chat one link that it goes to our support area where it
Perfect.
shows all the list of supported and unsupported
Perform.
files. So our list of supported files is more than, I don't know, 30 formats. So basically, yeah, you can check it out there. It's a long list, and
Long
also
list.
I'm happy that we are adding PDF as one of the
Yes.
supported. files. Nice,
A
very
lot
nice.
of people, yeah, a lot
Good
of
news, good news.
people have.
Yay!
That's great news. I mean, a lot of people have been
Yes.
requesting that and have mentioned about that. The thing is, PDF is complex, right?
Yeah, it is.
And sometimes, as I mentioned, it's not going to be perfect because it depends on the quality of the PDF, the text, and everything. If it was scanned, if it was not scanned, how it was created. But overall, we tested it a lot, and it's working pretty well. It's actually impressive how well it's converting this PDF to a editable format on the fly, right? On the platform, and then converting it back into PDF that's non-editable after the translation process. All right. So now, finally, the fun part. I spoke a lot about a lot of things that's more like related to preparation of for the file and context and everything. Now the fun part, translation, translating the content. And let me go here to maybe this Word document. I will change to my mother tongue so I can maybe not say something that's wrong. Hopefully, let me open Portuguese Brazil. All right, and I will, of course, translate that for you so you can anyone can understand. Okay, so and now finally the most important part is that translation, right? So how we keep the tone, how we keep the content translated according to your glossary, according to your terminology, according to the way that we want that content to be translated, and when it becomes our context sensitive translation, right? And I'm not going to that we have a video, by the way, on our YouTube that explains this in a lot of detail. I'm not going too deep into that because we're going to be here for hours. But just for you that maybe don't know how that works, again, I will simplify this. Hopefully, I'm not going to oversimplify. But it meshes what you have. Let me screw in a little bit. Cool. All right, zoom in, actually. So you meshes what you have in your translation memories. So this in green, what you have in your machine translation. If that's activated, of course, you can deactivate machine translation. And your glossary. In the glossary, it has priority over your translation memory and then over the machine translation, right? Um, but it tries to mash all that together, all these different options. So as you can see, we have a lot of different suggestions from the translation memory just because we made a lot of changes to this translation here and we store it in different moments and different ways. That's why it's replicating like this, right? Usually they just subscribe the previous one. We have the machine translation suggestions that is static, right? So it never changes. We have the glossary that's it really depends. So we have some clients that are constantly updating the glossaries. We have clients that update their glossaries every X months, right? And the glossary in this new world where when we are talking about AI and context sensitive, it is crucial because it is knowledge, right? So we are teaching this engine how this should be translated, right? And let me now show you an example here. So let me scroll out a little bit again. I hope everyone can see well my screen. If not, please let me know.
Yes,
So we
yes,
have
yes.
this translate. Okay, perfect. Translate twice as fast, impeccable. And we have this translation here in Portuguese, traduza duas vezes de forma impecável. Okay, so first thing, in the translation, we in Portuguese on purpose, right? We do not add as fast. We just add the twice, basically here. So it was a wrong calculated mistake for the sake of the session. Now, if I look into my translation memories, I cannot find this duas vezes, right? We just find o dobro, right, in Portuguese, which can be the same thing. Now, if I look into my machine translation, we actually have duas vezes, but that is not traduza, it's traduzir. é mais rápido, is not deforming pickup, right? So each one has a different that has different suggestions, right? And finally, my glossary. In my glossary, traduza is traduzir is different, right? Is agreeing with my machine translation. Rapidamente is different from all these entries. I did this on purpose. I will show you why in a minute. And deforming pickup. So it is the same as what we have in here in the translation, right? So now I'm going to ask my context sensitive to provide me with an updated translation based on what I have now in my glossary, translation memories, and machine translation. Ok. So it is proposing traduzir rapidamente de forma impecável. So it's different from what I have here. It's different from all the entries I have here, but it matches what I have in my glossary, right? So let me just apply this for the time being. All right. Everything have been tokenized, right? So translate is traduzir, twice as fast rapidamente, impeccably de forma impecável. So all those three terms that I have in my glossary have been used in the translation. But let's say that, okay, no, I don't like this translation. So when I say that we are teaching the engine, we are actually teaching on the fly. So when I say on the fly, is actually like this. So I don't like traduzir. I want traduza, the same thing, basically. And then I don't want rapidamente. I want to translate literally what I have in the English. Is duas vezes, oops, duas vezes mais rápido is twice as fast. Okay, so this is literal translation, just for the sake of this example. And yes, I want to keep the form impecable. I think that's the best translation for this. All right. So that's why I'm teaching my engine. I'm going to apply it. Oh, excuse me. I'm going to refresh this. All right. Traduza duas vezes mais rápido de forma impecável. This is exactly what I put in my glossary, right? One thing that's important to mention, I don't need all this, every single term in my glossary, right? So in example, I have for these sentences, which is a small one, I did this on purpose, but I could have just traduza or just twice as fast or just impeccably, right? So I don't need to have all that. But the most important thing is that we understand that we are teaching this engine through our glossary now, and now, okay, so let's say that this translation looks good now. I'm happy with it, right? And I also have this translation is now here, um, which is saying, oh, sorry, I forgot to apply this. All right, let's apply. Let's wait for the translation now to run. The translation now is screen a little bit so you can see the phrase translates twice as fast was translated correctly, but the word impeccable is translated as the form impeccável. While this is correct translation, it might be more concise to use impecavelmente to match the adverbial form more closely. Um, that can be, but I do like my translation better, so I will keep the form impeccable, right? So again, you are the translator, you are the decision maker, you don't need to follow that, but the smell is trying to point out to you that you may need to have a look to that segment and see if everything is making sense, if everything is looking good, and all that, right? So that's just one of the examples. It is a semantic verifier, by the way. The translation is nice. But again, I'm happy with it. I don't want to use this impeccablement. I'm going to just confirm this. And now, if I go back here, now we have this new entry. You have this entry with the form impecável, which is now stored in my translation memory this way with this exact translation. And now I also teach the engine, right? So now not only the glossary, but the translation memory, next time that I have a segment that's similar to this one, it does not have to be exact match, but similar to this one, you already know how I would like this to be translated, right? That's what we call teaching on the fly. And now maybe let's take another one. Mhm. This one. Okay, so this one don't have a lot of terms, right? So I'm going to delete this integrar. I will keep fundamental. I will keep tradução. I'll delete you. What else? Translation is translation. Localization is localization. Okay, so I'm keeping translation as it is and translating localization to localization. Right. So now let's see what's going to happen. I mean, I'm going to refresh this. Okay, so it is. Nós permitimos. Oh, first thing, it is adjusting the tags. So as you can see in the translation, I don't have these tags, right? This one here and this one here. So it is adjusting the tags. Other than that, que vocês. So this is in plural. Here is the singular. Você. There is no s in here, right? Automatizem, automatize. So they made some changes to the translation, right? So now, as you can see, by the way, one thing that's pretty cool is that when these adjustments happen, it is not just in the term that I change it. So, for instance, so this is in plural, right? And automatizen, it has to be translated this way because this is in plural. Now, when I change vocês to você in singular, like this one, this M has to change. We have to remove it. It should be automatized. So when we make this, when the AI make these adjustments, it takes all the context into consideration, adjusts every single thing around the term or the sentence that have been changed, right? Does that make sense, Rodrigo? I don't know if Rodrigo can hear me. Rodrigo?
Oh, sorry,
All right.
I was muted. Yes, yes, yes.
Oh, no problem. Okay.
It's great to see how this relation is not one to one anymore. You know, it's not
No.
like I don't need to have all term, not all variations. You know, in gender and plural and in our glossary and our engine can understand that and make all these small inferences and small changes in the verb or the gender. So yeah,
Yes.
it's so fascinating, you know, to see that working on the fly.
Cool, cool. Yeah. And just so we can wrap up this, one thing, the final thing is, again, as you can see, I have this 101% match, right? So this is context translation match. And we have this for a long time in the industry, and that makes sense, of course, right? But when we talk about this continuous learning and continuous improvement, we have to take into account that glossary terminology is more and more important. So the translation memory, whenever you confirm the segment, and you always have be like you always like this, when you confirm a segment, it gets stored right into your translation memory. The glossary was not like that, right? The glossary requires someone to go in there to maybe click on add term and then suggest a translation. This will go to someone that's going to review it, is going to approve it or not, or maybe they're not using the platform to suggest translations for terms. Someone is sending a spreadsheet with suggested terms. Someone is translating, then someone else is validating that. So there's always these manual steps. So another thing that we can do here, I'm not going to go into much detail, but just to mention we have the auto learning. That's this learned term. So it was learned automatically that translation is being is not being translated, right? It's being using translation. So it is learning automatically. So we are inferring, we're suggesting, excuse me, new terms to be added to the glossary constantly, right? So this is continuous learning. And now that we understand how this engine works, it makes clear how important is that, right? Because you have to have your terms being updated, right? You have to be up to date with the content, with the context, with everything. And now, finally, going back to the 101%, this is a perfect translation, right? As we call, or exact match, or maybe it was. Now I changed my glossary and I have to change it. I have to adapt it. So no longer 101% because it is not matching with the most updated version of the glossary anymore. And that's when AI comes, the context sensitive comes into place, and we'll take this into consideration, of course. But if you have something in the gloss that's different from what you have stored in your translation memory, it is going to propose that change, right, automatically. So we don't have you, a translator, don't have to go and try to find, okay, so it is 101% match. So first thing, usually this is out of the scope, right? So, but let's say that it is in the scope. It's 101% match. So you have to find, okay, so what's the word that has changed here in my glossary that was previously confirmed as 101% in my glossary. So we don't have to do that math anymore. So the tool can help you with that. And another thing that's important, closing all this, to get putting all this together, is that as I mentioned, this is learning on the fly. So every single change, addition to your glossary, change to the segments and confirmations to your translation memory will guide this according to how you want that to be translated. And when I say you the translator, you the translation agency, you the translation buyer. So how this content should be translated. We are guiding this now, right? So translation memory is amazing. The machine translation is amazing as well these days, of course, but they are static, right? They're not going to suggest you something else, something different, as they should, right? That's what we expect from them. Now, when it comes to context sensitive, that's what we expect. We expect it to take all this knowledge, relational memory, glossary, machine translation, to try to propose you something that makes more sense for today, right? Not for the last week when I confirmed this and my glossary was not up to date yet, right? So today, what makes more sense to be used in this segment as a translation for it? And finally, if you are the translator, you are the decision maker in the end. So don't be scared about the AI. You are teaching the AI, by the way, right? So with the changes that we're making, and with the confirmation that we're making, with the terms that you are suggesting to be added to the glossary, you are teaching AI, you're guiding AI. It smells the same thing. It's trying to help you to find those possible mistakes or things that could be improved, but you can disagree with that. If you don't agree with emails, you can ignore it and proceed anyway and confirm the segment. Now, if you are a project manager with a translation buyer, it's also important that you are not just throwing your content and send it to AI and let's see what's going to happen, right? What we are proposing is to put your content, uh, have every single segment being populated with the suggestions from AI on the fly, right? What you learned on the segment one is going to be applied right away on segment two, and so on. And having someone, the translator, the specialist, making changes, making probably smaller adjustments, and you probably get smaller and smaller over time because it is learning from you and from your translators. Um, so can deliver faster with more accuracy and even with more quality because then translators can, of course, translators have a lot to do and spend several hours a day in a week working on translations, but they could focus less on trying to find, okay, so let's see where is a missing tag in this segment with 50 words and 10 tags, right? Or maybe if it's a missing comma or a missing period. So the smells will help them with that. So now they maybe can focus on, okay, so post AI. So how this is being translated in the industry? Oh, by the way, is this being translated in the industry? Let me research for that. Let me see what's going on with that, right? So how they can think more about how my translation can impact the final user, the people that are accessing, that will be accessing this application, this website, and so on. And yeah, so again, those are my thoughts. my experience, what I know and what I think about all this. But most important for me was to explain this how this engine works, so you can understand that if you go to the very first segment, the translation from context sensitive is not as you expected. Don't get frustrated. So it is learning. So maybe by the segment number 10, maybe by the third file that you translate that have similar content, you'll be happy with the translation because all the small adjustments or the small mistakes or the bad suggestions maybe that AI is making to you because AI does don't have maybe a lot of context in the beginning, will get better and better and better because you are feeding AI with more context, with more terms, with more content stored in your translation memory. All right. I think that's I covered a lot today. I hope that my connection was better, Rodrigo,
No, it was good.
after.
Your audio was excellent. Sometimes your image
Oh,
you froze a bit, but your
okay.
audio was perfect.
Okay.
So
The
and
audio must be
then
more important.
yes, yes, yes. Well, yeah, it was interesting. So a lot of content, of course, and so and just to close, Jamil,
Hmm.
what in your opinion, the main
Hmm.
benefits of using a platform like BuildWorks to manage multimedia translation? What are the main benefits of using a platform like BuildWorks to manage multimedia translation, in your opinion?
Great question. So again, yeah, and that's exactly the main topic. So we can close this finally. So the main benefits are, first one, I would say that's the preview. So by having the preview, I cannot stress enough how much that impacts translators because again, I gave some examples, but that is literally sometimes literally can make them make a great translation that matches exactly what you need, what you expect, to have a translation that doesn't match at all with the whole context, with those images, maybe videos, and everything that you have in your application website. So preview is the first one, the top one in my opinion. Coming soon, the PDF ability to translate PDF in the platform. That's a great one, I believe as well. Again, I have heard a lot about this. And finally, the ability to manage your terminology, to manage to have your terminology to be continuously being fed with more content. That's again continuous learning and continuous improvement, which will directly impact the output, especially when we're talking about context sensitive, which is learning from all that and learning from your choices, your translator choices, and so on. So I think that those are the main items that are helpful
Nice,
in Buildworks for this workflow.
interesting.
All
Oh,
right.
interesting.
Cool.
Yes,
Very cool. All right. So we are exactly on time. That's good. All right. So I would like to thank everyone. The session next week will probably take place on Tuesday. All right. So I hope to see you all there. We're going to have a different subject. If you have questions, you have comments, please send us our way. Glad to be here. Thank you, Rodrigo, for being here with us again and again next time and again and again. So we're going to keep this interesting for the people. And if you have questions, please send us to our LinkedIn posts. We'll be happy to answer those questions. This was recorded, so this will be available on our LinkedIn or and also on our BuildWorks YouTube channel. Feel free to share with anyone that you believe that can be helpful. And again, thank you for being here with us, and thank you for your time. It was a pleasure as always. And we talk to you soon.
yes. See you soon. Bye bye. Bye bye, everyone.
Take care. Bye bye.